This is an AI-generated podcast based on the article When HR Lost Its Way, Brett Billups on Bringing Biblical Truth Back to the Workplace, written by Apryl. The article link is in the show notes. Hey everyone, I'm Apryl, and I'm really excited about today's conversation. I'm sitting down with Brett Billups, who's got this fascinating story about going from Kraft Foods boardrooms to literally transforming how we think about HR from a biblical perspective. Brett, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, April. Really appreciate it.
So, I want to start with something that I think a lot of our listeners are going to relate to. You describe this moment where you'd leave church on Sunday feeling spiritually alive, and then you'd dread Monday morning at Kraft. Can you unpack what was happening there?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think I was becoming bitter at the church for not giving me the tools to connect Sunday morning with Monday morning. But then I realized that wasn't their job, that was mine. And that realization, it gnawed at me because, Kraft didn't pursue godly things. I know that's a shocker, right? As a large secular organization, they didn't pursue godly initiatives. So I'd leave church spiritually alive and just dread walking back into work.
That disconnect is so real. And I'm curious, you started searching for resources to help bridge that gap. What did you find?
Well, that's the thing. I found plenty of high-level theology of work, but nothing that addressed the Monday morning reality. Like, how do you counsel someone dealing with a difficult boss from a biblical perspective? How do you conduct a performance review that honors God? How do you handle sexual harassment or conflict through the lens of Scripture? There was just nothing practical out there. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So you started writing these principles yourself.
Yeah, exactly. So here's what happened. I started writing as I encountered each issue. I'd study scripture, pull out biblical principles, and draft action steps based on my HR experience. Steps leaders could take before, during, and after specific situations. It was really for my own edification at first. But a colleague, the former CHRO for Michael's retail stores, told me I needed to put it in book form. 12 years later, Biblical HR was published.
12 years. That's a long gestation period. And then when the book came out 5 years ago, you tried to launch your own practice, but you said it failed miserably. What happened?
Yeah, I left my position mad at my boss, saying, fine, I'll just go do my own thing. And it failed because I was spiritually in rebellion. I was prideful. I was seeking his will versus him's. I was trying to take glory that was due him. God wasn't done preparing me.
So you took a position with Marketplace Chaplains. What did God teach you there that you still needed to learn?
It's a great question. I think he taught me about surrender, really, about control being an illusion. I realized I need to give it over to him anyway because I'm not in control anyway. And then last fall, the release came. God said, okay, you've learned what I want you to learn. Now you're ready. Now it's time to transform the HR function. My wife confirmed it. This time, I didn't launch in pride. I launched in surrender.
That's powerful. So what does Monday morning look like for you now? How has that changed from those days at Kraft?
Every morning, my goal is to get on my knees and ask him, what do you want me to focus on today? Not write a list and ask God to bless it, but go to him first. That's where my list comes from. And I realize there's no such thing as work-life balance. We have one life, not two. What are his priorities today? That's what I focus on.
I want to dig into something you said about culture, because you make this really interesting point that culture isn't built through mission statements. You said it's built through discipleship. Can you explain that?
Right, so here's what happened when I was leading HR for a 6,000-employee construction firm. I scrapped unproductive team meetings and moved to weekly one-on-ones with every direct report. It was a beating every Friday, half-hour meetings all day long. But that's when we started getting things done. That's when I could remove obstacles, connect dots, and disciple people into a godly culture. The way you create the culture you want is through discipleship. Bringing discipleship into the workplace through effective one-on-ones is what transforms your culture.
That's really interesting because I think a lot of leaders would hear one-on-ones every week and think that's just not scalable. But you're saying that's actually the most strategic thing you can do?
Absolutely. And you know what? Recent Gallup surveys show employee engagement at its lowest point in a decade. The primary driver? Lack of managerial engagement. What do you think a succession plan is? It's you discipling somebody to fill your role. That's what it is.
So, for the Christian business owner listening who feels that same tension you felt 15 years ago, what's your advice?
Don't wait for someone else to build a bridge. That's your job. Start tomorrow morning on your knees. Ask God what He wants you to focus on today. Then schedule a one-on-one with someone you lead, not to delegate tasks, but to disciple them. Because the most strategic move you can make isn't a business plan. It's surrendering control to the one who's been in charge all along.
Brett, that's a perfect place to close. The idea that control is an illusion and we need to surrender it daily, I think that's something every leader needs to hear. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us today.
Thank you, Apryl. Really appreciate it.
And for everyone listening, you can find the full article and links to Brett's work at Biblical HR in the show notes. Thanks for tuning in to Kingdom Factor Collective.